Deep in New Mexico's desert lies Chaco Canyon, where 10,000 people mysteriously vanished centuries ago. From magnificent architecture to sophisticated astronomy, we'll unravel the secrets of this ancient civilization and explore theories about their puzzling disappearance. Picture this: around 850 CE, what looked like an empty desert started transforming into something incredible. The ancestral Puebloan people saw potential where others saw nothing but sand and scrubland. They figured out that the canyon's unique geography created a microclimate perfect for farming. By building small dams and irrigation channels, they turned this harsh landscape into fertile ground. The population grew from just a few hundred hardy souls to thousands. They didn't just survive, they thrived, constructing massive great houses like Pueblo Bonito, which would remain the largest apartment building in North America until the 1800s. These weren't just random builders, they were master architects who understood how to use the sun's position to light up specific rooms during important ceremonies. Let's dive into Pueblo Bonito, the crown jewel of Chaco Canyon. This massive structure wasn't just big, it was a masterpiece of ancient engineering. Imagine a building rising 4 stories high, containing 650 rooms and 40 ceremonial kivas, all perfectly aligned with the movements of the sun. The ancestral Puebloans used a unique construction technique called core and veneer masonry, where they sandwiched rubble between 2 faces of carefully shaped sandstone blocks. What's really impressive is how they managed to create perfectly straight walls and square corners without modern tools. They used T-shaped doorways, not just for style, but to make it easier to carry supplies through the narrow passages. The building itself was arranged in a D shape that worked like a natural solar collector, helping to keep rooms warm in winter and cool in summer. This wasn't just architecture, it was ancient genius at work. Now, here's where things get really interesting. The Chacoans built something that still puzzles archaeologists today. A massive network of arrow-straight roads, some as wide as 30 feet, stretching for hundreds of miles across the desert. These weren't just simple paths. They were carefully engineered highways, cut right through hills and across steep terrain. What's bizarre is that these roads often seem to ignore the easiest routes, instead running in perfectly straight lines regardless of the landscape. Even stranger, many of these roads appear to lead nowhere important, or connect to places that weren't even inhabited at the time. Some archaeologists think these weren't just transportation routes, but symbolic paths with deep spiritual meaning, possibly used for ceremonial processions or to connect their world to important astronomical alignments. Let's peek into a typical day in ancient Chaco Canyon. Picture families waking up at dawn in their cozy rooms within the great houses. Women would grind corn on metates, creating the fine cornmeal that formed the backbone of their diet, while children helped tend to the small gardens growing beans, squash, and cotton. The men would head out to the fields or work on construction projects, using sophisticated techniques passed down through generations. But life wasn't all work. Archaeological evidence shows they enjoyed creating beautiful pottery, crafting intricate turquoise jewelry, and playing games with carved stone pieces. They also traded extensively, bringing in exotic items like macaw feathers from Mexico and seashells from California. Community was everything here. Imagine everyone gathering in the plaza for ceremonies, sharing meals and telling stories under the stars. Now let's explore one of the leading theories about why Chaco Canyon was abandoned, a devastating climate crisis that struck around 1130 CE. Tree ring studies tell us the story of a monster drought that lasted nearly 50 years, making it practically impossible to grow enough food for thousands of people. Think about it. When you're farming in a desert, you're already living on the edge. The Chacoans had created an impressive agricultural system, but it relied on predictable rainfall patterns. When those patterns changed dramatically, their whole way of life began to crumble. Imagine watching your crops fail year after year, while the springs that once provided water started drying up. Archaeological evidence shows people began to leave in waves, heading north to areas with more reliable rainfall. The drought wasn't just a temporary setback, it fundamentally changed the environment of the entire region. The spiritual life of Chaco Canyon was incredibly sophisticated, blending religious ceremonies with precise astronomical knowledge. The ancestral Puebloans built their great houses to align perfectly with the sun, moon, and stars. During the winter solstice, sunlight would stream through specific windows, creating stunning light displays that marked important ceremonial dates. In the massive kivas, circular underground chambers, priests would lead elaborate rituals, burning sacred herbs while community members gathered to celebrate harvests, marriages, and seasonal changes. They used special tools like sundaggers, narrow beams of light that hit specific spiral petroglyphs at exact times of the year. The discovery of hundreds of ceremonial flutes, elaborate masks, and ritual objects shows just how central these ceremonies were to Chacoan life. Archaeological evidence suggests they even hosted grand gatherings where people traveled from hundreds of miles away to participate in these sacred events. Let's look at the fascinating clues these ancient people left behind. The pottery they created wasn't just functional, it tells us amazing stories about their lives. We can trace trade routes through distinctive black-on-white pottery designs that spread across the southwest. Their tools reveal incredible ingenuity, from perfectly balanced stone axes to delicate turquoise drills. Recent discoveries include copper bells from Mexico and cacao residue in ceramic mugs, showing they had extensive trade networks stretching over 1,000 miles. Perhaps most impressive are the stone tools used for astronomical observations and building construction. Analysis of tool marks on building stones shows they had sophisticated measuring techniques that helped them create their perfectly aligned structures. What's particularly interesting is how we can see their technology evolving over time through different layers of artifacts. Let's explore the three main theories about why Chaco Canyon was abandoned. First, there's evidence of violence. Some archaeologists point to burn marks on buildings and unburied bodies suggesting conflict. But here's where it gets interesting. Others argue these signs of violence were actually ritual closures of sacred buildings. The migration theory suggests that when resources became scarce, people moved north to places like Mesa Verde and the Rio Grande Valley in organized groups. This explains why we find Chacoan architectural features in these new locations. The gradual abandonment theory, supported by recent research, suggests people didn't just leave all at once. Instead, they slowly moved away over generations as the climate changed and social structures evolved. Think of it like a modern city in decline. Some neighborhoods empty while others hang on, until eventually the whole place becomes quiet. Modern Pueblo peoples have fascinating oral histories about where their ancestors went after leaving Chaco Canyon. Many of these stories align perfectly with archaeological evidence pointing to migrations northward to places like Mesa Verde and eastward to the Rio Grande Valley. The Hopi people, for instance, talk about their ancestors making a series of planned moves, stopping at specific sites that became temporary homes. These weren't random relocations. They were carefully chosen spots with good farming potential and water sources. The Acoma Pueblo people maintain that their ancestors carried sacred objects and knowledge from Chaco to their current home, which they've occupied since the 1200s. These oral traditions describe the migration not as a desperate escape, but as a purposeful journey guided by spiritual leaders and practical needs. Physical evidence backs up these stories, with distinctive Chacoan architectural features and pottery styles appearing in these new settlements at just the right time periods. The influence of Chaco Canyon didn't end with its abandonment. It rippled through time and continues to shape the Southwest today. The architectural techniques pioneered by the Chacoans influenced building styles across the region, with their descendants incorporating elements like T-shaped doorways and core and veneer masonry into new structures. Modern Pueblo communities still practice agricultural methods refined by their Chacoan ancestors, and their ceremonies echo ancient rituals performed in those grand kivas. The sophisticated astronomical knowledge developed at Chaco lives on in traditional calendars and celebrations. Perhaps most importantly, Chaco Canyon stands as a powerful reminder of human ingenuity and adaptation, showing how people can create remarkable civilizations even in the harshest environments. Thanks for joining us on this journey through Chaco Canyon's remarkable story. If you enjoyed uncovering these ancient mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps us bring more fascinating historical discoveries to life.